Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's been a while. We're going to be doing some talking on the difference between Farming Simulator 25 and Farming Simulator 22, some of the issues in 25, also a little bit of an update on where I'm at and where I've been these last couple of weeks. So starting with the comparison, obviously 3 years of advancement between the two games, but I'll be honest, kind of just my overall thoughts, I don't think it changed enough, to be fair. I'm playing on Farming Simulator 22 right now, and the main differences are the textures are maybe a little bit nicer, the coloring and volumetric fog are great, which makes, like, obviously way off in the horizons. Looks a lot better in 25, but for the most part, at least on my computer, I can't run very high graphic settings in 25, but I can in 22, so they look pretty similar to me. First day I played Farming Simulator 22, I was wowed at how great it looked, and maybe that's because I jumped from Farming Simulator 17 to 22. I completely skipped 19, but I watched gameplay of 19, and I think the jump between the two was much bigger than the jump between 22 and 25. We're just talking strictly graphically here. Obviously, there were some pretty big changes in 25. Ground deformation is probably the biggest one. Again, we talked about volumetric fog, which really makes the distance, the horizon, look really good. They also toyed around a little bit with the sense of scale and perspective to make regular machines look much larger. Because in Farming Simulator 22, if you stand next to your equipment or just driving around in it, it feels kind of like a toy. It looks really small. It doesn't properly convey the size of it. I find this particularly true when baling straw. The straw baler behind the tractor looks small. It looks like a toy. And then if I'm driving down the highway after playing Farming Simulator and I see one of those balers on a semi-trailer, it's absolutely huge. I mean, the tires are like more than half of my height. But in the game, and same with the rear tires on the Combine, they just look like cute little tiny tires, but they're massive. So I think 25's sense of scale is much better. In terms of the actual graphics and textures, I like the differences in 25 for grain crops. I think the biggest improvements are definitely soybeans and sorghum. Soybeans look really ugly in 22, but they look really nice in 25. Sorghum as well, I didn't like it in 22. I don't know how it looks in other places of the world, but where I'm from, the sorghum in Farming Simulator 25 looks way closer than it did in 22. 22, it was all the same color. It was like an ugly orange. But in 25, it's kind of got a tan or beige undertone, and the tops, the heads of it are orange, which, again, looks a lot closer to what it looks like where I'm from. Now, some of the crops that look pretty bad, even the new crops, the new peas, green beans, spinach, they don't look amazing. The way they go into the harvester is just the same as any other root crop harvester, and I don't like the root crops and vegetables in Farming Simulator. They look really bad. I've seen videos on YouTube of vegetable harvesting, and these machines are really impressive, but there's just several things that are letdowns in Farming Simulator 25, and it was the same way in 22. I thought that the new crops they added in 25 would maybe have a little bit of care put into them. It seems like they kind of just threw them in there and you know, didn't really give it much effort, which is kind of sad. Additionally, some issues from trailers and loading in 22 to 25 is the exact same. There's the same issues. Again, I think the grain crops could look better, but they look decent, and they haven't gotten much better for several games. When you unload from the auger into a trailer, or when you unload a trailer into the sell point, it doesn't look very good. I don't like their model of the grain, but it's even worse with vegetables. When you tip spinach or green beans or peas, when you tip it from the harvester into a trailer, it looks horrendous. Same with sugar beets, potatoes. Another thing that looks terrible is when you're actually harvesting the crop. inside the harvester you can kind of see the crop moving around. It looks decent when it's like on a conveyor belt, but if it's ever falling through the air, it looks so incredibly bad, and it's like can't harvest vegetable crops and enjoy it because it looks terrible. It's unplayable for me. Now, this isn't terrible. This texture right here in 22, it's about the same in 25. I don't notice any differences. This is all good enough. I don't have any complaints with this. It could definitely be better. I think if we had like an accurate 3D modeling of like the beads of grain or the heads of grain rolling off of each other, instead of just like being a texture that doesn't change and just slowly rises up. But again, I'm okay with what this is. This is acceptable. But the vegetables and other types of crops are just plainly not. It's not acceptable. The way a corn forage harvester harvests corn silage is super satisfying, but the way it shoots out of the back of the pipe looks really bad. It's static, it doesn't change. Kind of like this texture in my harvester here. It fluctuates, it pulses, but it's always the same. Whereas, you know, in real life on the farm, the grain rate that you're taking in is not static, it changes. So sometimes there'll be a ton of grain pouring out of the top of that hopper. Other times, not so much, so it's slower. And also it's an auger, so it kind of sends chops of crop up. It's not a solid stream like it looks here. It's an auger, so it throws out like kind of like throwing handfuls really quick out of the top of that pipe. Which again, it's okay, it's functional here. This works. But for something like corn silage or swathing, not swathing. I don't remember what I was thinking of there. But definitely for corn silage, it looks bad. It's static, it doesn't change. It just looks like a green tube through the air into your trailer. I just don't like it. Now these are issues that have carried over from 22 to 25. Let's talk about some issues that are new to 25 that I never really remember seeing in 22. Now, it has been 3 years since the game came out, so it's possible there were some pretty big issues. I know one big issue with Farming Simulator 22 early on was the pallets would clip into the ground, and you couldn't move them. They were just stuck there. You couldn't build anything there, you couldn't drive your tractor there, so pallets would just glitch through the floor and get stuck. That was a pretty big deal. And to be honest, I don't think it ever 100% got fixed. It got better, and much more rare to lose a pallet, but it did take some time though. Now in 25, the biggest issues I have seen are the headers clipping into the ground. I noticed especially on my map doing, I think it was cotton, the header kept hitting the ground and like not fully working. It would stop the harvester in its tracks. Another issue with textures like, and these may have been fixed. I have a list. I kind of want to check them out and see which ones are still issues. So the New Holland McDon header on sorghum, it doesn't sit at the right height. So when you harvest sorghum, you only harvest the heads, the very top, but the header sits down at the bottom. So, you know, your combine header is all the way on the ground, but it's only harvesting the tops, and it looks terrible. I mean, I'm guessing that's been fixed, but I'll play it on screen if it hasn't yet. To this day, mulching ruins seeding. If you harvest a crop and go back through and mulch it, you can't direct drill. Like, you have to cultivate. The old-fashioned Mack grain truck also strikes the big body crampy trailer, the red one. Whenever you try to back up into it to attach, it'll get stuck for a moment before it slides underneath. When you harvest rice, the tracks of your harvester will just cut right through the stubble, so you can like stop and see the tufts of stubble poking up through the track, which looks bad. Another problem I noticed was the John Deere planter. Yes, this is on ModHub, but it is from Giant Software. It doesn't have any collisions on the ridge markers on the side, which obviously if you are using a planter and the ridge marker hits a telephone pole, you're gonna feel it, but in the game it just slides right on through. I don't know if that's intentional or not, but if it is, that's not good. They should fix that. If it's unintentional, which I imagine it is, they probably just lazily copied files over from FS22 into FS25 without properly testing it, which again shouts of laziness and complacency from Giant Software, which really sucks to see. I love this game, and it shouldn't be hard to play it, but that's kind of where I'm at. I'll mosey on towards talking about where I've been, why I haven't been uploading for a little bit. If you don't care, you can just click off. So aside from other issues with the game, I've had some stressful times lately. The holidays are always busy. I had some additional family stuff going on. Sadly, some tragedy, and yeah, it's just been rough for the past few weeks. Finding the time to record, and the need to record hasn't been very high on the priority list. But you know, I'm trying to pick that back up again. But on top of all that, you know, working 60-hour weeks at work doesn't really leave a lot of time when you get home and need to go to bed in 3 hours to eat supper, do things productively around the house, and record. So, you know, it's been difficult, but that's not a forever problem. That's just temporary. But another issue, when I finally have the time, I have the mental clarity to want to record, I'm not super tired, I get in the game, I'll sit down and record, sometimes for hours, right, on a Saturday or a, you know, whatever, a free day. I've recorded multiple hours sometimes, and I just get frustrated with the way it's going, with the way the game is. Certain features just kind of irk me a little bit, and I end up scrapping it, and obviously that's not ideal. If you're working tons of hours, or even if you're not, I spent money on the game. I want it to be a release from stresses and fun, right? If you're frustrated at a game, you're not making progress, it's not fun. So, you know, it's just been difficult, but I think if I just stay away from the things that I know are difficult or not working very well, it shouldn't be too big of a deal. I tend to not be an angry guy at all, usually, but something about spending $50 on a game and it not functioning properly, largely due to the creator of the game seemingly not caring at all about it, it gets on my nerves a little bit. So yeah, hopefully these issues get resolved. I don't think the game was a waste of money at all. From a content creation standpoint, doing the new game is interesting and exciting to me. I think it's interesting and exciting to a lot of viewers, and it's always nice to try new things. I love variety. So the new crops, the new machines, the new brands and all that is nice. And plus it looks a little better. It does. It works better. The ground deformation is pretty cool. I think I'm going to have a ton of fun on the game. I just wish they would have given it that extra 30% that they left. They seemingly didn't care enough. There's a lot of oversights, and I'm sure it's very difficult to make a game. Heck, I couldn't even model one tractor, maybe not even one tire on a tractor successfully. So, you know, I give them props. But at the end of the day, it's their job to make a high-quality game. They charge us $50 for it. But yeah, I don't think it's a waste of money. I just wish it was a little better, and hopefully it'll improve, because some of these issues I've talked about have been issues for probably over a decade, I would imagine. The textures of unloading trailers, the textures of forage harvesting, and just baseline bugs and issues with the physics of forestry have always been problematic, and pallets have always been problematic. I think it would be beneficial for everyone if Giant Software had a competitor in making a realistic farming simulator game. But, you know, I will continue to play Farming Simulator 25 for content creation, and, you know, I like to play it for my enjoyment as well. But there's going to be plenty of times, surprisingly, that I will stick to Farming Simulator 22 to just relax. And I am honestly surprised that I would say that. But anyways, that's all for me for now. I'll see you next time. Peace.